Afternoon. Dan here, DD Speed Shop, and man, we're working on this jalopy. So we left it last. I had just got the motor in and fired it up. We had it hot wired, no clutch assembly in it whatsoever. The exhaust was kind of cobbled, so there's gonna be a lot of little things to get done today. Job one is clutch. The linkage is a freaking nightmare. I've been under there a little bit today. It hits everything. So we're going to pull it out, bend it around a little bit, make some sort of a return spring on it to keep the tension on the rod. This is all mechanical stuff, no hydraulics set up here, which probably would have been a little nicer, but this was in the car and free. So that's what we're going to go with. So I'm going to pull that out, heat up with a torch, give it a little, that's a technical term for making it fit. All the plug wires, so originally on the other headers, they're angle boot, which are not the greatest for these headers, so if I'll be able to maybe tuck them, it'd be a nice clean look if I could have them all against the block somehow, and all down the back. That'd be kind of cool, so we gotta see if we can get that taken care of. We have to redo some of this fuel line, because it's a little block. The rear float was stuck when a little bit of time I was running it, and it was just dumping fuel, so we gotta take care of that. Somehow, I don't know if we'll have enough stuff today to get the linkage figured out for the throttle. That's pretty important. The battery or the alternator is just sitting there. We have to modify a little bit the wiring on this thing. It had an externally regulated setup, so we got to kind of strip some wires away and just make it work a different way, because it's just like a one wire, which is actually very simple. Mount the coil. Oh, electric fan. We got to put that on there. I don't even know where the wiring went for the electric fan. That must be it. So little odds and ends. Button up the exhaust, wheels, tires on, and hopefully it'll move. I gotta say, this motor is noisy. It's been noisy since I had it. I haven't been able to put any miles on it. So, one or two things will happen. We'll run it. The noise will either get much worse, and then it'll be quiet, or it'll go away. Or I guess it'll remain being noisy. Either way, I want to drive it. But I think that's what we're gonna be able to accomplish, is get this all dialed together today. I'd like to make it a runner and driver, and I'd like to take it for a little test drive, maybe in the next video. And honestly, it's probably going to sit at MERS for about a month, because I want to get the convertible home. I want to start working on that. I got grandiose ideas. I'm jacked up on it. It's getting into spring, and I'd like that thing kind of going as well. And probably get back in the Nomad, but 2 garages. So anyways, I'm going to pull the linkage out, and we'll start fixing it. All right, let me introduce you to this segment of First World Problems with Dan. Now, this is the clutch little bar. Now what wants to happen is, well, it'll run like this, and this pushes on, as you step on the pedal, it pushes on the arm that actuates the clutch. Now the problem is, with those headers, it won't fit, so it has to fit on the other side of the bar. Once on the other side of the bar, it doesn't line up with the clutch fork, and it kind of interferes a little bit with the bell housing. So what we're going to have to do is essentially this L has to just, we got to close her up just a little bit. So somewhere down here, we'll just kick it over slightly. Now a little bit here should give us a fair bit there. Now this is threaded for adjustment. So I'm going to pull this all the way out and see where the threads go, and then we'll try and heat it up above that. Now here's where the first world problems come in. My torches are in this garage. My vise and workbench are in the other garage. So we're going to use this engine stand as a workstation. So we'll get set up, we'll get the torch going, a couple of clamps, fix her up. So this is our setup that we're going to go with. So we have the rod bolted to the engine, or clamped to the engine stand. It's just 3/8 coarse thread. So we're using a long alternator bolt, which if you're a hot rodder, you got one of those. And a pair of vice grips on it. We're going to try and heat it up right on this bench. It's probably about 1 inch down. I marked where the threads were, and they go to about there, so we're not going to interfere with that. And should be able to kind of eyeball it with enough heat, pull it over without a whole lot of force. My plan anyway. that worked slick. Now we just got to see if it's the right amount of bend. Is that going to show up? Yeah. So, benefit of Canada, toss this in the snowbank and see if it fits. Okay, so this is quite the operation here. This rod right there is from the clutch. It goes into this goofy looking Z-bar, which goes all the way under there, and that's what pushes on the clutch. I did manage to just reuse the throttle linkage and all that, or bracket I should say, that was on the small block. I flipped it upside down and used it, but it'll give me a little spot here for the return spring. Maybe a short spring, which should be okay. And it has basically wide open throttle, so we should be mint on that. Up next, we gotta probably straighten that tube out and that tube and just rebuild the one. Anyways, underneath, we'll take a little look-see. So we just put a clamp on the exhaust, so that's our custom collector, drops all down. And then around here, this is, look how freaking tight that is. So we put a little spring. I actually just welded 2 washers together for a little tab, and up in there, you can see that that's the bar that we bent over. So as you can see, it is tight, 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 tight. But I think we should be okay. We'll just pop up top here. Because inside the car, and this light is so handy dandy got. So we got full throttle, and the clutch has probably about an inch, maybe 1.5 inches before you kind of start feeling it. It goes all the way to the floor. I think that should be fine. We always play with the adjustment after, but I am more than happy with that. Oh, this thing's gonna be cool. We got a bit of a hole, but we'll get that probably dialed on to next. God, I took a picture, make sure I knew where all the rods went. When I got this thing, unfortunately, the rods were kind of bent, and it didn't like second gear, but I'm thinking I can put some adjustment in it so it'll go a little further back. And I'm also thinking the pilot bushing might have been a little wore out. But under the car, back to under the car. Okay, so we got this line kind of straightened out a little bit. It's pretty simple. I used to use brass fittings, and this is all just aluminum junk, 1/2 inch. So we have it running up from the fuel pump, which is okay. This was a real nice straight kind of bend, but you know what? It is what it is. So essentially, we're just gonna recreate this to a certain extent. Pretty simple setup. All I'm gonna use is some 1/2 inch aluminum. This stuff bends so easy. It's so nice for fuel lines. And I'll just use the tool properly. Feed it into this little thing. I'm sure you can get this at like anywhere, Amazon, whatever it is. And it's kind of got some labels or some markings, so we'll just kind of fold it till it's about 90. There we are. Get that out. Now this is going to obviously end up being in or out a little bit, but this hard bend you can kink it otherwise, right? So we'll straighten out the rest of it. Give her one of those. Close-ish. Use the tubing cutter. So we'll kind of eyeball it. Just a little bit more. So real simple, I'll go ahead and match this to that. What the stupid grill. And don't have to flare the ends. But this is so, like I said, so easy to work with. It's unbelievable. And I do need the fittings off that line. So we'll get that started, and maybe we'll do a little fast motion and come back when we're flaring the ends. The trick is put the fittings on before you flare it, because they don't fit over the flares. And you got to put them on separate. A lot of times they don't like to take a 90. Tech tip. I never done that myself, screwed up, but I have seen on the internet. All right, so we're back. So we'll use the flaring tool. I love this thing. This is a Master Cool flaring unit. People always ask me about it. It's actually on, well, just a link to it on the ddSpeedShop.ca website. I'm going to be quoting that place a lot. I'm going to try and answer all my questions with a website. Saves me a bunch of time. And you can email us, tell us how awesome we are. So like I said, you want the tube nut on first because it won't take a 90. Get that on there. Put this in the correct way, I guess. Oh, maybe this is 3/8, not ½ inch. Idiot. Anyways, you put the line in. It has this little stopper, so it's a bit of a kind of a thing. But I hold it like that, so it won't go any further. And then clamp it in the jaws. And then take your die. So you're gonna flare this exactly like you do a brake line. This thing's sweet, hydraulic. If you live in freezing temperatures, it doesn't like to get too cold. It will screw up like your floor jack does for being on the ground. I've done that many a time. Get it kind of started. Hydraulically pump it up. I'll give you your single flare. The aluminum, you don't gotta send her home too bad. And then you put in the cone. This gives it double flare. Same thing, you spin it up until it's kind of gonna be close. You just want it centered. This gives it its second fold over. Done. Unspin it. Oh, what's going on here? Oh. Bada bing. Perfect flare every frickin' time. So now, this will be this side. So I'll probably cut it right at the end, about there. And we'll do the whole process again, except this will be completed. I almost didn't put this on. I would have been cranky. So there's our piece, so we'll get it kind of started there. There. That's not bad. Now, my wrenches. Where did I put my wrenches? Oh, there it is. So they have to be pretty tight. Now the problem you're gonna run into is the second you snug them up, there's nothing to crank on because they are aluminum. So you gotta use a 3/4, in this case anyways, on the piece of brass itself. Give her a good go. And then same thing on the carburetor's good. Just kind of hold it. Because if you strip out the carburetor, it's bad. There we go. I did take this one off. I don't know if I tightened it or not. There we go. Problem solved. What it did before, which is was a little hokey, is I ran the return spring to the fuel line. So I don't think I'll be doing that again. I got to find a short spring. Actually, I could just go to the back there. I could find anything. Actually, I think there's something on the ground. Yep. Look at that. See? I know where everything is. On the ground. Obviously, it's going to be too long, but that should work. Trim it up, make it work. All right, so next day, or maybe a couple days later, I don't know. Anyways, when we left it, I had kind of a bunch of stuff plumbed together. So the car is very together, but it also needs a pile of work. When I ran it before, the rear float was stuck and it started gushing fuel out. So I pulled it off real quick, and I mean, look at all the junk in there. It's probably my fault for storing it improperly or outside or whatever it may be. Anywho, inside here, put the shifter in. Oh, this is going to be sweet. This is the whole point. got reverse and everything. Now this thing did, I think it would pop out of 4th maybe. So this whole conundrum, not such a big deal, but this shifter was actually out of a Tri-5 bench seat car, which I then cut and welded back together. Because you guys know how much a Hurst shifter costs? Well, finger in the lens. But it's a freaking fortune. And then the rods, one of them was bent like in a U when I got it, so I straightened it out. So that also might be part of the problem, or maybe it wants to go on 3rd a little bit better, but it's not happening in 4th. I don't know. Anyways, at the back here, there is an adjustment. That bolt right there, so you can pull, that's your stop, one way or the other. So, I mean, it feels like it goes in, but maybe I'll give it a couple of turns just to double check and see. Otherwise, maybe it's a transmission issue, or I know if the pilot bushing is screwed up, that can also cause those issues. So we put a brand new one of those in there. Oh gosh, caught. The other thing that was an ongoing issue was the gearing was all wrong. So this thing is a 28-inch tall tire with a 308 rear end and a small block, and it would just, when you're cruising on the road at like 35 miles an hour, it would want to turn like 12 or 1300 RPM, so it was kind of lugging. So I wonder if maybe that was it, like a and then it would just kind of pop out. So if you ran in 3rd, it was no big deal. So, and it ripped on the highway. So we're gonna try that. Well, it needs new gears. That's what I was trying to say there. What else we got? We got the throttle linkage. I think I did all that last. It's been a couple days, like I said. I gotta put the fan on, which is real easy. Just kind of a couple of little straps through there. I want to run the plug wires if I can across the engine block. Maybe zap strap them to the motor mount. Double check all the mounts, make sure they're all tight. Go through the carburetor. I mean, odds are if this is mangled, they're all gonna be that way. So we may have to take that all apart. But we'll see. I'm gonna clean this one up for now. Get it running. Look at the gas that came out of it, actually. That's been in there a while, and it goes yellow like that. But yeah, set the timing, drive it a little bit, see how old noisy motor does with lots of oil pressure, and take it for a ride around the block. Hopefully. All right, so a bunch of screwing around later, but we've got the hat on. Everything, all the plug wires I got tucked underneath, which was quite a task. I might have to mess around with the plug wires. These headers are very tight. I like the way they look when they're tucked underneath. But I may have to chop the ends off and put the straight boots on, so that might be a problem down the road. I messed with the wiring, so this thing originally had an external regulator. The alternator was externally regulated, so I just kind of made a little bridge, and I used this, I believe that's for the light, and I snipped off the other wire and hooked it all up, so hopefully it'll charge. Put the electric cooling fan on, but while I was trimming up all the wiring, it turns out I cut the wiring because I thought it was this, but that is not the case. So yeah, screwed up that one a little bit. But I think it's all together enough that we can start it and see if the wheels go one way or the other. If it does, we'll drop her down. It is kind of late, so I don't know. You'll drive it back and forth in the garage a little bit. But ultimately, maybe another video where we drive it for real. I know there's a few more things I want to do this thing, put a set of shackles on, do the tires and all that. Tires are a fortune right now. Shipping's crazy. It's hard to even get. When I was checking at the speed shop, they said Mickey Thompson's, there was a bunch of stuff they couldn't get. So I don't know, maybe I'll guess at Hoosiers, who knows. Anyways, I ordered parts for the convertible and they all started showing up. So I do want to switch those around, so this might get a little road trip to Merce, followed by a convertible road trip back. But I do think I took all the lights out of the 57 rag, so we'll see what happens there. But anyways, let's fire it up, see if the wheels go one way or the other. Burn my eyes with the exhaust, and if it's all good, we'll drop her down and see if it moves. I'm excited. So I skipped ahead a little bit. Instead of running it on the stands and screwing around, I was like, it's friggin' cold out. I'll have the door up, and it'll be freezing. I'll be working on that. So we're just going to go ahead and chance it, because it is what it is. One thing I didn't factor, well, I thought about, but obviously I didn't know anything about, I didn't put big block springs in this thing. So it does have some travel yet, but I don't know, I guess we'll see. It used to sit real high where the, turn a little light on, look at this. Boop, boop. This little bump stop was almost, you can see a witness mark, it was almost always on that. So we'll see how that goes. I think the linkage and all that should be good. Yeah, I gotta run inside and get the camera thing, the little tripod stand, because of course I have forgotten it. But yeah, pop door up, drive it forward and back, and I mean, that's a win. Had a car that was completely running and driving and perfect, no issues. Put a clapped out motor in. While I was under, actually, I noticed the exhaust is touching the cross member. So maybe that's my noise. That could easily be it too. And I know in the other car, the exhaust was touching everything. So maybe the motor's fine. Or we'll find out together if it's blowing up on the side of the road. Alright, it is freaking cold out. But we gotta see if it rolls. It looks cool. Does it look neat? Sure sounds rattly though, eh? Well, I guess we'll see how long she lasts. Anyway, that's leaving it for now. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below, let me know what you think. Hopefully it's just exhaust rattling around. I also gotta run the valves, I guess. You know what? That's probably something I should do too. But that's it for now. See you in the next one.